Good morning. I am really honored to be here. We had a great service last week, and it was focusing on cancer survivors, and it was people who are also currently going through cancer, but people who overcome it as well, sharing their stories. And as I like to tell people, he shared a little part of my story, but I'll go into a little more detail. That a lot of times what God wants us to do isn't that complicated. It's very simple. Sometimes it's so simple we think must not be it. It must be something more. And that's what I learned. So one of the texts that I wanted to bring out this morning, I didn't know if they had my PowerPoint, was 2 Kings 5:14. So I wanted to kind of weave this story into how I saw it in the Bible, in the story of Naaman. And we're all familiar with Naaman the leper, right? So and that text in 2 Kings 5:14 reads, so he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. And so when I was thinking about my story, and a lot of times of what people ask me, well, what did you do? I said, it's a lot simpler than you think. And so I really want to kind of bring that on home here today, because a lot of times the simple things are the things we tend to overlook. So to share a little bit about how I got into what I do now is, as the pastor mentioned, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer back in 2007. I was really shocked by it. I thought I was pretty healthy. I was living my life in a way that I thought I was avoiding disease. So when I got the diagnosis, it completely threw me. And the one thing that stuck out is that I knew people who had been healed of cancer naturally. And I said, I know a woman in my church, she's 70 years old, said she was healed of breast cancer naturally, and she's still going strong and vibrant and doing wonderful things. And I said, you know what, I just had an inclination to research and find out what my options were. I asked the doctor, I said, what are the options? He said, surgery is it. We take it out, and then you're on medication for the rest of your life. And I didn't like that idea of being on medication for the rest of my life. So I said, what about alternative approaches? And he said, I've never seen anyone healed of thyroid cancer naturally. You can try it, but that, whatever. in a few months, we'll go ahead and schedule your surgery. And to me, that felt like a challenge. I was like, well, maybe I'll be the first if you've never seen that happen before. And as I was going through this, I started researching. So I said, well, let me find out, what people do to heal themselves of cancer. I never, had to embark on that before. I never really thought about it. And so I started researching, and the more I researched, the more I found that a simple plant-based whole foods diet can heal the body. And what I mean by whole foods, meaning not processed, meaning natural foods, meaning foods that are close to their natural form as possible. So if you think of something like an apple, you can make it into applesauce or apple juice, right? Which is better? It's going to be the apple because it's closest to its natural form. It hasn't been processed with chemicals and added sugar and things like that. So I'm talking about whole foods. I mean foods that are close to their natural form as possible. So I started researching that more and more, and everything was pointing to that. And so I decided to change my diet. So I got rid of all meat-based products, all of processed food, all dairy, and started eating vegetarian or vegan diet and really focusing on whole foods, focusing on greens and garlic and onions and things that heal the body. And I went to a facility for 3 weeks that really taught me how to use food as medicine to heal the body. And so when I came back, I had to figure out, now I need to learn how to recook. Because if you're like I was, a lot of things that I cooked were in a box, and they just went in the microwave, and they weren't really that healthy, and they were not fresh, whole foods. And what heals the body are the nutrients in those raw foods, in those foods that are cooked minimally. And so I completely switched my diet. And it was, a trying time because all of my friends, I had a lot of friends who were doctors who said, just go have the surgery, why are you messing around with this, what are you doing? And, something came to me during that time that this was happening for a reason. I remember my brother called me one day when I was at this treatment facility, and he said, God told me that you're going through this for a reason and you're going to be okay. And I'm not going to be afraid, because when you hear cancer, people think death. And he's like, I'm not going to be afraid anymore because I know God has a purpose and a reason that this is happening to you. Because it shouldn't happen, so there must be a reason. And I believe that too, because something in my heart said there's a reason bigger than just getting cancer randomly for this. And so, as the pastor mentioned, I took time off from my job, and initially I quit. I just said I quit because I was stressed out by this job, and it was something I was building an engineering firm with partners, and I was on the go 24/7, traveling twice a month all over the place, and I wanted an out. I was already thinking about it before I got the cancer. How am I going to get out of this? And when I got the diagnosis, I said, you know what, I can't heal if I'm stressed out. And I said, I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore, and God's going to make a way. And so I told my partners I quit, and they said, well, wait, don't do that. How about we just give you a leave of absence for as long as you need? And I said, well, okay, I hadn't even considered that, but that's how God opens ways for you when you decide what you're going to do. Because I knew I needed the stress of that off me. Because a lot of times with illness, it's very difficult to heal when you're stressed, because we don't understand how much stress breaks down the body, breaks down the immune system, and really tears you apart. A lot of times stress is the cause of the disease, and if you remove the stress, you remove the illness. So I said, this is a big stressor for me, and maybe this is my out. So, God opened that way so I didn't have to worry about the finances and just focus on healing and health. So I kept studying throughout that year of what I was going to do, because I decided to give myself a year to heal. Because, cancer doesn't pop up overnight. When you get cancer, that means when it's diagnosed, it's been there for a while. Mm-hmm. Now you're just detecting it. It's got big enough to either cause pain or to show up on a test or a blood test or something. So it doesn't happen overnight, so a lot of times it's not going to reverse overnight. And for me, thyroid cancer, fortunately, was a slow-growing cancer. It wasn't the kind that just blows up overnight like some cancers do, so I had that time. And during that process, I really started studying more about other things that affect your health. And I remember there was, something that came up was that, my thyroid was also enlarged. And if you keep, if your thyroid continues to enlarge, it'll cut off your vocal cords. And I remember since I was young that I was always the peacemaker. I never wanted to make trouble. I never really spoke up for myself. I would always, I'll take the hit if it keeps the peace. And sometimes that's great. We need peacemakers, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes it can go too far and you become, kind of the doormat. And I said, I think, a lot of times where we get our disease tells us a lot about what we're going through. And I said, I think this is saying I need to speak up and speak out and take care of myself. And then I have a message to give and not always acquiesce to other people. And I said, so I need to find my voice. And so I started doing that and started saying no when I needed to say no, and started, just standing up for yourself. If you know what I mean, when you've been in that role a long time. And so I started finding my voice. And through that, I also realized that another piece of healing had to do with understanding our self-talk. For example, when I started healing, I started doing things. The last piece for me, I did the nutrition, right? I started exercising more. I was already exercising, but I started exercising more. But the last piece was the emotional piece and the mental piece. And I started meditating and praying and visualizing cancer leaving my body every day. And so I said, I'm not going to claim that I have cancer anymore, because when you speak things, they come into reality. Our words are powerful. Our voice is powerful. So I stopped saying I had cancer, because I said every day I'm visualizing and praying that cancer is leaving my body. So I'm not going to claim that anymore. I'm claiming healing.
Amen.
And I'm planning a wellness party when this is all done. I'm not going to claim that I'm sick. It's not my cancer. And a lot of people, you go around and you hear them and they say, oh, my diabetes, my bad heart, my bad knees. You're claiming that. And you need to let that go. It's not yours. It's a condition. Throw that off. And so I started feeling very empowered with that when I started realizing that our body responds to our mind and our thoughts. And so that our thoughts are very powerful. And so they actually change our body chemistry. It's shown that when you have positive thoughts, your body chemistry becomes more alkaline, meaning it's more in the state where disease cannot grow. It's a more healthy state. And when you have negative thoughts, doubtful thoughts, fearful thoughts, your body is more acidic. And that's where disease tends to grow more easily. And so we can change that simply by the way we think and the way we feel. And when we pray with confidence. And we're not begging God. We're saying, God, this is what I need. I trust that you will do that because you want the best for me. So I'm not going to go forward in fear. And so I stopped being fearful. I started, I was monitoring my thyroid with ultrasounds, and I started telling the doctors, you know what, I'm going to schedule a test when I feel I'm healed, and I'm not going to let you drive this process because I'm my doctor now. And so I started because I said, you know what, I'm going to know when I'm ready to be healed, and I'm not going to do it on this process that they wanted me to do and all the fear they would try to instill in me every time I went to the office. And I said, because either way, I know I'm going to be okay. Whether I have to end this road, do surgery, I'm going to be able to do it with a clear conscience and know I did all I can do. But I know that I'm going to be healed one way or the other. So I let the fear go. And then as we got closer to the year, things started changing. My thyroid shrunk. And the wonderful thing about that was my doctor didn't even notice that. It was because I was looking at my own charts and compared the two, and I had to ask him, and he said, oh, wow, that's true. I've never seen that happen before. And I was like, well, that really highlighted to me the need for you to take charge of your own health. Because he has so many patients, he's not really paying attention to the details, right? But I'm like, nobody cares more about me than me and God. And so I would say, give me my charts. Let me look at those. Explain what this means to me. And so I knew that I was healing because that was a huge change that hadn't happened in his experience before. And so this was almost a year in to this. And I was thinking about what I was going to do next for a job, because I was like, I've got to do something, but I really don't want to do what I was doing because my job was in the defense industry. I was an industrial engineer. I was doing work that helps optimize the delivery of weapon systems. And I never felt comfortable with that because, again, I'm a peacemaker. I love people. I don't want to do anything that's going to facilitate harming people, even though it was for the good of the country, right? And so that never sat right with my soul. So I said, I have to do something different. I can't go back into defense. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so as we got closer to my year almost being up, I said, okay, I'm going to go back and have this ultrasound again. And we did it again, and the nodule was still there, the tumor that was there. And I was really surprised. And then something told me, have them check it again. Maybe the cancer is gone and the tumor is still there. And I asked the doctor to do that. Reluctantly, he did. And we checked all the other nodules. There was 20 nodules on my thyroid. And you have to lay there and have these little needles stuck into your neck. They deaden it, but you can still feel it. And I remember the doctor and the nurse saying, wow, you're the calmest patient we've ever had as we put these 20 very long needles in your neck. And I was, because the whole time I was just singing a hymn. And I was zoning out and just trusting in God that this was going to be okay. So I wasn't worried. I was like, you're the one who should be worried because you're the one doing the needle stick, so you can be careful. But I wasn't worried because I felt like God had this, right? And so a week later, when I got the results back, I went to his office, and he slowly went through each test, and I was expecting, bad news just because of the way he was going through it. And then one by one, he kept saying, there's no cancer. There's no cancer this way. No cancer. There was no cancer anywhere in my body. And what we checked. It was surprising to me because this was the best news he could possibly give me, but he was giving it in such a sad way because if he hadn't done it, right? So I was like, God did this, and he gave it to me in a way so that I could learn what to do and then help other people. And so I wanted to cartwheel out of there that day. I was so excited. And then, of course, I had that wellness party that I was planning. We all had healthy food, and everyone wanted to know what I did and how I did it. And from there, just something grew out of that. So I started studying more and got certified in holistic nutrition so that I could make sure I filled in all the gaps. And now I switched to helping other people, doing what I did without having to go through all the trials. Because I did a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error on what to do and how to do it and what to eat and what's going to work. And I said, now I can give people that shortcut and give them that faith and confidence that there are ways to do this, that you don't always have to go the way that tradition tells you. You don't always have to think that this diagnosis means death. When God speaks life, you have life. And he gives us these trials and tribulations so that we can learn and grow from them and then ultimately help other people along that path. And so when a lot of times when I tell people what I did, I said, it's not that complicated. It's pretty simple. And like I said, the first thing was a very simple whole food plant-based diet. And like a lot of people, if you told them something a lot more complicated than that, they would probably go and do it and spend a lot of money and just jump all in. But when you tell them that something is changing what you put on your plate, it seems too simple, and they don't do that. And that's why that brings us back to this text this morning that I brought up with Naaman. And if you know the story of Naaman, Naaman was a commander of an army, the Syrian army. And his wife had a handmaid who was from Israel. And Naaman got leprosy. And of course, that was almost like a death sentence in those days because you had to be quarantined from everyone else. And it just was a very bad diagnosis. You're really kind of the end of your life in your community as you knew it. So kind of like getting HIV or something like that, is how it used to be when people were so afraid that, don't touch me or something like that. There was just very little information. And so his wife's servant said, I wish Naaman would go to the prophet of Israel and be healed. And so Naaman agreed. He was probably desperate, ready to try anything, right? So he got this letter from his commander to send to the king of Israel and said, I'm sending my servant Naaman to be healed by Elisha. And when the king got that note, he was alarmed, and he tore his clothes and said, why would he send me this letter? He's trying to start a war with me. He's trying to start a fight. Because there's no way I can heal somebody with leprosy. It's like, this is the same thing people say about cancer. You can't heal cancer naturally. You can't heal cancer by what you put on your plate. You need to do all these other things that sometimes work and sometimes don't, right? And so the king was very upset, and Elisha heard about this and said, there's no need for you to tear your clothes. Send him to me. I can heal him through God, of course. And so he went there, and he traveled. It's about 350 miles that he traveled to get there. And when he got to Elisha's house, Naaman wanted him to come out, and Elisha just sent his servant out and said, go, the story, washed in the Jordan River 7 times. Now, initially, Naaman was very offended by this. Yes. He's like, I traveled all this way, and he's an important commander of an army, and you're just going to send your servant to tell me to go take a bath? He's like, aren't the rivers in Damascus much better than these here in the Jordan?
Come on. Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just completely offended. And what he probably didn't know as being a Jewish person at the time, that you can't come into contact with people with certain skin diseases, or you have to do a lot of ceremonial cleansing, in order to come back into the community, which is probably why Elisha didn't come out in the first place. But again, we have our pride on our sleeve sometimes. You know, I'm an important person. You know, I need to see this. And so he stormed off and was ready to go home and like just going to turn around and go back the 350 miles and not even bother with what he said. And then his servant said, Master, it's in 2 Kings 5 and verse 13. He said, Naaman's servant said to him, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, wash and be cleansed?
Yes, yes.
And that's what I hear over and over and over when people tell me, I can't give up this food. You know, I can never give up my chicken or my, you know, beef or my whatever. I can't live without that. You know, and don't you think that's an extreme diet, a vegetarian diet, a vegan diet? Isn't that extreme? And then I have some friends that I get this thing, a little meme on Facebook that says, I think what's extreme is cracking open your heart, taking a vein from your leg and replacing one in your heart and then closing it back up. To me, that sounds a little more extreme than changing what you put on your plate, right? Yeah. So it's all about how we look at it, right? Because that is extreme. I was like, which one would you prefer? So are we going to, you know, dig our grave with our fork or not? So exactly what's said here, it was too simple. I'm not going to go wash in a river, but if he had told him to do some extraordinary thing, climb a mountain and come back and bring me 100 shekels of silver, and then, you know, he would have done that gladly. But it was so simple, he didn't believe it. And so he fortunately listened to his servant and went and washed in the Jordan. And we know the story, right? When he came up the seventh time, he was clean. Absolutely. And that's what happens when we obey God and do what he asks us to do. Sometimes it's so simple we think that can't be it. And it absolutely is it. It's the simple things, the things that we do every day, day to day, that really make that difference. We don't have to, you know, climb a mountain and come back again to get what we're looking for. It's usually about the little habits that we do every day and the way that we think and the way that we move forward in faith and believing. And so of course he came back and was grateful and thanked Elijah, and he was healed. And that's the same message I want to give you today. There's a lot of things that you can do to change your life right now. We have accepted so many things as normal aging. You know, my knees are killing me. I'm getting old. You know, I'm getting gout. I'm just getting old. I'm getting heartburn. I'm getting old. No, what's happening is your body can no longer compensate for what you've been doing to it, and those symptoms are manifesting itself. It's not age, it is just that your body no longer can handle it. And so it's manifesting itself. And so we don't have to accept poor health and just feeling terrible every day and groggy and, you know, lethargic as normal, because it's not. Because God says, beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Right? So he doesn't want us walking around in illness and sickness when we could just change our daily habits and have that vibrancy. And then think about what greater witness you are when you have that health and vibrancy. People want to know what you do. I want to be like that. You know, your witness is who you are. It's not always what you say. It's what you do and how you live. Come on. And so I want to go through a few of the slides here and just talk about some of the basics. Go to the fourth one there. Yeah, that's right there. So a lot of these diseases, I'll ask you, with the common factor between these diseases that are so common in our society, like heart disease, stroke, diabetes, cancers, obesity, high blood pressure, all of these things have one thing in common, and that most of them can be avoided. They're what's called lifestyle-related diseases, meaning you aren't born with it. You weren't born with a gene that says you're going to get diabetes because your mother had it. That's not how it works. What happens is that we are born with certain dispositions and propensities for things. But what that means is, if you get sick, if you continue in poor health practices, this is probably the way that you will get sick. It doesn't mean you will get it. So my grandmother had diabetes, and one of the reasons I started thinking about health and wellness was because I would see her give herself this insulin shot every day in the leg, and to me it looked like she was stabbing herself in the leg with this. And I was like, wow, if I got diabetes, I'd probably die, because I couldn't do that. So I'm going to make sure that I don't get that. And so as I started learning more about it, it was not, I didn't have to be fearful of getting diabetes just because my grandmother had it. My grandmother had it because of the way that she ate, and she didn't know better at the time. So if I continued to eat in the way that she did and on before that, I probably would get diabetes. But if I changed what I did, then that would never be triggered. So we all have cancer cells in our body. We all have things that can pop up. But what triggers them are our habits and our lifestyle. And so you don't have to be fearful that, oh, because, you know, my sister and mother and aunt had breast cancer, that I'm going to get it. If you change something about your lifestyle, your diet, then you won't get that. It just gives you the indicator of the type of illnesses you will get if you continue on that path. So we can throw away the genetic disposition of thinking that that is what's going to happen, because the studies show less than 10% of illnesses are predicted by our genes, meaning that almost 90% are based on what we do, our environment, our lifestyle. So you have control over that. Yeah. So we don't have to just relinquish it and say, this is going to happen to me, because you get to change that. And that's why they're called lifestyle-related diseases. You go to the next one. There's a study that was done of over 60,000 people that looked at their health and their eating practices, and it was tracked over several years. And what it shows is that based on your diet, with a plant-based diet, if you start over here, the red bar over here, yep, right there, that represents a basic, regular American standard diet. Now, if you go to the next bar, it's what's called semi-vegetarian, meaning you eat more plants, more vegetables than the average person, and you balance it out. As you go down, the next one is mostly vegetarian, you eat fish, and then the green bar is vegetarian, and the last bar is vegan. What it shows is the closer you get to a fully plant-based diet, the lower your body mass index is, meaning the closer you are to your proper weight. And that's just by what you eat, keeping all things even, meaning not doing extra exercise and all these other things. What it also showed is, on the same chart next to it, is that type 2 diabetes, the instances of type 2 diabetes goes from almost 8% down to about 2.9% just by changing what you eat. So if you want to reduce that risk, you can choose where you want to be on this chart. And if it were me, I'd want to be on the lower end, right? Yes. So you can go to the next one. So I want to just give you some of the basics of disease prevention and reversal. And what's the great part about it is what heals things like cancer also works for things like diabetes and heart disease and arthritis and a lot of things that we think just happen because we get older. So if you click this button right here, it might make it a little larger. Okay, just you can click for, yeah. There we go. All right, so the first thing I mentioned, alkaline acid balance, right? I mentioned your thoughts, how you can become more alkaline and more acid. And what your body does is our body makes sure we stay in an alkaline state, because if you become too acidic, you'll get very sick and die. So it does everything it has to do to keep you alkaline. And so the way to help your body do that is to eat more alkaline foods. And alkaline foods are all plants, all fruits and vegetables are alkaline. And then things that are acidic are going to be your whole grains, nuts, seeds, and things that are very acidic are your meat and your processed food and dairy. And so you want to have a balance of eating more alkaline foods than acidic foods. Now, a lot of us kind of do the opposite. You know, if you go to a, fast food place, KFC, you know, all the food is brown, and it's going to be mostly acidic. Very few green, live plants there. So when you eat something that's completely acidic, like processed white bread and a burger and fries and a soda, 100% acidic, right? So now your body has to go through and try to take calcium from your blood to make sure you don't get too acidic. And over time, that taking those nutrients is basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. Over time, then your body starts breaking down and you have weaker bones and you have calcium deficiency and osteoporosis and things like that. So this is what your body does to balance things out. And that's what I'm saying. It's not that it's just that you're getting older. It's only that your body can do that for so long before it says, oh, I'm worn out now. And now, boom, I have a disease. Yeah. But it was building all along. So you want to make sure that you're eating more alkaline foods than acidic foods. Basically, half your plate should always be green. And your meat, if you're going to eat it, should be less than 25% of the plate. It shouldn't be that big slab of steak on your plate and a big slab of potatoes and about 20% of something green that's really basically a garnish, right? That's kind of how we eat. When it should be completely reversed, because the healing is in the green foods. That's what's going to repair the cells and things like that. And so that's what you want to focus on, and whole grains that give you the nutrients, and not the other way around. A steak should feed an entire family, of 5. Not one person. That's way too much meat that your body now has to handle and break down, which takes a very long time to do. So you have to think about it. I advocate a completely plant-based diet, but I realize everybody's not going to do that overnight. So I'm like, if you're going to do it, use it as the accent piece and not the main thing. The main thing needs to be the vegetables. And so we're talking 20% of your plate should be meat. That should be accenting it. When you look at Asian societies where they have lower instances of all these diseases, they use very little meat. That steak would feed a family probably for a week, because there's going to be an accent piece and not the main thing. It's going to be the flavoring. But what I'm going to show you is how to do the flavoring without the meat. I'm going to do a demonstration in the hall next door that you can get flavor out of food and make it taste good too. And a lot of people are very hesitant to eat plant-based diet because they think it's going to taste bad, or they've had bad vegetarian food before, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, everybody's had bad meat before. It didn't stop us from eating it, right? Yeah. So let's keep trying until we get it right. So the second thing is reduce the waste transit time. And that basically means how long it takes you to eat something until it comes out, right? So if you're eating a very heavy meat diet, that transit time slows way down, probably more than 2 days. And that's not good. But the longer something sits in your colon, it should be out in about 24, no more than 36 hours. And that's on the high end. The longer it sits there, things get reabsorbed back into your bloodstream, the toxins that should have been released. But if you're not eating enough fiber, you're not eating enough green vegetables, you're not drinking enough water, it sits there. And then you feel bad, and you feel agitated, and you probably have more of a short temper and things like that you don't realize are just related to, because you're not going regularly. And so the way to speed that up is to eat more things with fiber. That's going to be your fruits, vegetables, your whole grains. Drink a lot more water. You should be drinking like half your body weight in your ounces of water a day to get that through. And that speeds up the time it takes you to go. And I tell people, if you really want to test it out, you can eat a bunch of beets one day and see when that comes out. And you'll know how long it takes. Mm-hmm. And this is something we have to take charge of our health, right? And not expect somebody else to do it for you, because you're the one who decides what you eat every day, right? Yeah. So that's a very simple test. You want to reduce the toxin load. So that means toxins that you put in your body through food or through the things that we put on our body as well. That's a whole another talk we could have. But things you want to reduce, foods that have a lot of additives, preservatives, pesticides, things like that. You want to reduce the toxin load. That also means reducing meat and dairy products, because a lot of those, most of them, are pumped up with antibiotics and medications and growth hormones and fed very poor diets to make them grow very fast. And then you're taking that in. So you want to reduce the toxin load. You want to minimize estrogen, especially when we're dealing with cancer, because estrogen is like the food for cancer. And so we all have estrogen in our body, men and women, but it's balanced, right? But when you eat more things that have estrogen in them, it's going to be meat and dairy products from animals. You're going to be adding more estrogen to your system. So you want to reduce that. And there's a lot of other ways to do it as well. Certain plastics. We've all heard about BPA and the plastics, right? So we want to, store more things in glass as opposed to plastics, and not microwaving in plastics, because that disrupts our hormones. So you want to start using more glass instead of plastics. You want to maintain a proper body weight, because toxins are held in fat cells. So the more fat cells you have, the more toxins, the more your body has to do to release that. So you want to drink more water to help release that. When you lose weight, you're also releasing toxins, and you'll feel better too. And so you reduce your chances of all of those diseases when you release the weight. Exercise. Now we hear this all the time, and this is what I'm talking about, simple things, because exercise does so many things. It helps release the toxins. It helps reduce the transit time. It makes you feel better. It gives hormones that help your body heal. It makes you happy. Endorphins are like the happy hormone. I mean, it does stuff. It keeps you younger. It makes you feel better. Everything works better when you exercise. And so it's such a simple thing that we just have to make the commitment to do and see it as a privilege and not a chore. Because I remember I was working with a trainer once, and he was a very good trainer, and he got rheumatoid arthritis while we were working, and he was in the process of healing himself, figuring out how to heal naturally. And he was having me run around the track like a mile or two, and I was complaining about how hard this was. And he said, I wish I could run with you today, because my joints are so painful, I can't even do that. And then I started looking at exercise in a whole different way, because when something is taken away from you, it's like you start thinking about, he wishes he could run around that track with me. And here I am, fully able, and I'm complaining. And so it shifted the way I started thinking about exercise and seeing it as a privilege and not a chore. And then appreciating what it does for your body. It helps reduce depression and all types of things if we just work our bodies. Like, the bodies are designed to move. And when we sit all day and just let all those toxins sit there, they have nowhere to go. So we need to let it go and move. Drink plenty of water. As much water as you can. Distilled, purified, whatever. Drink water, because that, again, facilitates this whole process of releasing toxins from the body and letting them out of your body and not sit there and manifest disease. And then getting adequate sleep. A lot of us don't sleep enough, and that is when the body repairs, is during sleeping, those hours. So it's important that we get our 7 to 8 hours of sleep, because that is where the healing takes place. The next one. And so just the 8 laws of health, that's called New Start. It's a way to remember what you should be doing. Nutrition, we're talking about. Exercise, water, sunshine is very important. Even in the wintertime, to get outside. Temperance, meaning temperance in all good things, not temperance in everything, right? Because people say, temperance in everything. It's like, you don't do temperance in a little bit of drugs, right? You do none of that. Yeah. So it's temperance in all good things, because you can't overdo it with good things, right? So you want to have temperance and make sure you're balancing that out. Fresh air, getting out, and you can do that during your exercise or meditation, and then resting, and then trusting in God and letting go of the worries. I mentioned stress and worry is often the triggers for a lot of these diseases that we have. Yes. And the next one. I mentioned this already. You want to get rid of negative self-talk, because if you say you can't do it, you're guaranteed that you can't do it, right? So, and if we are trusting in God, then we can do all things, right? Yes. And so you want to stop saying it's too hard, I don't have time. If you say you don't have time, you're sending a mental cue not to make time. And we don't understand that these words we're saying are so powerful. One of the books I was reading is like, one of the main reasons people aren't able to lose weight is because they always see themselves as fat or overweight. They've never even visualized themselves as healthy and thin. And if you can't see the goal, you can't get to it, right?
That's right.
So you have to visualize what you want and stop projecting these negative things and start speaking what we want, speaking that life. And so instead of saying I'm just going to fail again, or my mother had this, so I'm pretty much destined to have this. That's you know, I was on a plane once where I was reading this book about preventing diabetes and reversing diabetes, and the man next to me saw that I was reading it, and he was like, oh wow, he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to get that soon. I was like, what, diabetes? He's like, yeah. I was like, why would you say that? He's like, well, my father had it, my mother had it, my brother's got it now, he just got diagnosed, so I figure I'm next. And I was like, wow, you know you don't have to get diabetes. This is what this book is about. You know, you can reverse it. And it was, he didn't really believe me. And I felt very sad because he was so ingrained with what we've been told about our genetics determining our health that he was destined to do. I'm pretty sure he probably will unless he changed that mindset.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to be very important about that mindful about what we say and speaking what we want and putting the positive affirmations, I am whole, I am healthy, and actually using that faith and trusting that I'm going to be healed. You know, when I was going through the cancer, I believed I was going to be healed. You know, and I was like, and if somehow at the end of the road doesn't happen that way, that's going to be okay because I'm trusting in God in this. And so you put that fear aside and use that energy to give your body that energy to heal. Amen. So you want to move from that, and I'd also say that poverty thinking to prosperity thinking. We also say, oh, I can't afford that. Well, you probably never will be if you keep saying that. You know, you need to speak what you want. Speak that life. That's the power God has given us. He says He wants the best for us, right? He doesn't want us to stay in our, pitiful selves. He's given us power to grow and be great. Yeah. And so that's what He has for us. So we have to use that in our thoughts and in what we say. So the next one. And so these 5 things that you want to avoid that will help you determine whether you should eat a certain food or not is you have to read the labels. So the first thing is high fructose corn syrup. It's a poison to the body. Okay, so anything that has that in there, you shouldn't consume. Trans fat, hydrogenated oil, we know this, right? So if we see something that's partially hydrogenated, that's no good for you. It raises your bad cholesterol and lowers your good cholesterol, which is the opposite of what we want, right? So artificial food coloring, all of these artificial food colorings are neurotoxins to the brain, especially for children who are going through, have ADHD or very hyper. A lot of times it's the food coloring. So we want to eliminate all food coloring. Anytime it says yellow number, whatever, just put it back because it's a toxin to your body. The same thing with MSG or monosodium glutamate. It's just an addictive property to enhance flavor of food. It has no nutritional value, but it's also a neurotoxin. And it's been a factor in diseases of the nervous system like MS and Parkinson's and all these things are related to the consumption of MSG and aspartame, which is the fake sugars. So all those fake pink and blue and yellow packages need to go. It's artificial food. Your body doesn't know what to do with it, and it's toxic to the brain. And so when you get rid of all these 5 things, you'll realize you're going to stop eating most junk because these are additives the food manufacturing industry puts in there to extend the life of food, to make cheap food and make you addicted to it. So you want to be a little smarter than that and not buy into what they're giving you and choose better and more natural foods because these are definitely toxins to the body. And I remember it said reduce your toxin load. You want to start right here. So then you're going to be buying more natural foods, buying more whole foods, fruits, vegetables, things like that, and learning how to cook a little differently. The next one. So the 4 food groups that you want to focus on: fruits, vegetables, beans, grains, and those are the things that are going to give you all of the nutrients that you need without taxing the body. That you can get all your protein, all your calcium, all the nutrients you need from a much purer source than through other ways. Go to the next one. So you want to eat the rainbow, eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. The more colorful your plate is, the more nutrients you're getting. the more antioxidants are in those colors. The different colors represent different antioxidants in foods. So if you're eating one thing that's all the same color, you're not getting a variety of the nutrients that your body needs. So you want to keep that in mind. That's what I'm saying. If you go to KFC, everything's brown, right? So there's not much antioxidants there. You only get the antioxidants from foods that are live plant foods. You don't get antioxidants from meat products. You don't get those phytonutrients that take free radicals out of the body from processed food. You get that from fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. The next one. So the foods you want to eat regularly is going to be your fruits, your vegetables, your green, especially green leafy things. I focus a lot on collards and kale and spinach and things like that because those things heal the body and give you a lot of good calcium and other things. You want to focus on your beans, peas, lentils. Those things give you your protein as well. And there's protein in every fruit and vegetable, just lower amounts. So when you eat a well-rounded diet, you get adequate protein. So you want to focus on your nuts and not nuts that have been roasted with a lot of oil and salt. You want your raw nuts. And then your whole grains, brown rice instead of white rice, because all rice starts out brown, right? So they strip away the hull and then give you just a part of the rice, so it's no longer a whole food. So we want to eat the real thing, not part of the food. Try new things like quinoa. I'm going to do a quinoa dish in a moment, and then of course your water. So these are like the basics when you start thinking about what to eat. You want to start there. Next one. We can talk about this later. Supplements. Everyone should be taking vitamin D3 multivitamin. Because a lot of times we don't. We think we're getting enough from our diet, and the soil is so depleted. There's really not enough nutrients in what we're eating, especially if you're eating a lot of processed food. So you want to eat. You want to take a multivitamin. And maybe I'll come back another time and talk about D3 and the importance of that. But it's very important. Most of us are deficient. And then B12, sometimes you need that on a plant-based diet, but if you're taking a multivitamin, you don't need to worry about that. And then DHA is our omega fatty acids. You get that from things like walnuts and chia seeds and hemp seeds. They're going to be a better source for you. And then a lot of people are deficient in magnesium. So that's another thing that we want to look at when we're trying to prevent disease. We want to make sure we have the nutrients we need, and because you don't heal disease from medication. You heal disease from supplying the nutrient deficiency, right? From curing that. That's how that works. So you can go to the next one. So you want to just look at different ways to eat. So if you're used to eating a Pop-Tart for breakfast, you're basically getting, almost no nutrition from that. You're just filling up your stomach. And not only are you getting no nutrition, you're probably getting all the toxins that I just mentioned, the food coloring, hydrogenated oil, all of those things. So instead of that, you want like a whole grain bagel with like peanut butter or almond butter. And make sure your peanut butter is a natural peanut butter. It can have all those things I just mentioned. Instead of sugary cereal with milk, you can use you can have a whole grain cereal or oatmeal with like a soy milk or almond milk or something like that. That's going to be much better for you. Instead of a bunch of bacon and eggs, you can have baked your potatoes, home fries yourself. And there's some, you can do, again, whole grain muffins. You just have to start thinking a little differently. And there are a lot of substitutes for meat. They're like made from, it's called bacon. It's made from tempeh or soy, whole soy, fermented soy, which is a good form of soy. Instead of, a ham sandwich, you can do a sandwich with avocado and things like that, and lettuce and tomato, things that are going to nourish your body and not make you sleepy after you eat them. Because if you get very sleepy after you eat, you've pretty much eaten the wrong thing. Because your food is supposed to give you energy, not a sleeping pill, right? So that says you just gave your body too much work to do now to overcome what you just ate. Food is supposed to give you an energy boost. So instead of a sausage pizza, you can do a veggie pizza. Instead of like a milkshake and ice cream, you can do a fruit smoothie. Just some ideas of what you can do instead. Go to the next one. People always ask, what do you eat if you're not eating meat? I like smoothies because you can put a lot of things in them in the morning, a lot of nuts and seeds and additional things to pump it up, as well as greens like spinach and kale. You can snack on your fruit in between, because we need to be getting our 5 servings of fruit a day, right? So how you do that is you snack on it in between your meals, and you have it at breakfast too. I like black bean soups and salads and things like that. But you can get the more you get into it, the more you'll find interesting recipes, so you don't think you're going to be deprived. You're going to feel better, and your taste buds change from eating that processed stuff to eating real food, and you'll start craving real food instead of the packaged junk that we've been eating. Veggie stir fries and pasta and things like that are excellent choices. And so I started learning how to cook again, and from that, I had a lot of clients I started working with. I give them recipes, and they didn't know, they never heard of a lot of the food. So I started making videos to help them. So to say, you can do this, it's not that hard. And so you can look at my videos if you've seen, something, and find out how to make a kale salad, find out how to use quinoa, find out how to make raw foods taste good. Like I do a creamy raw collard greens. Very good for you because you get nuts in it, you get the greens and all those things. So you just have to change, be willing to shift your thinking and try something new. And that's why I do the videos, to help people do that, to actually see it done, and then kind of give you the courage to try it yourself. And so you can go to the website there. I think it's on the handout, and check those out. Go to the next one. And then on Monday nights, I work with a holistic physician. We do a free conference call, a wellness call, every Monday night, where we talk about different health topics and take questions, which is an incredible resource for people who just want something answered. And we do this as a service to the community. We opened it up from not just our clients, initially for our clients, and we opened it up to everyone. So if you have a question, you're trying to get connected with other people who are trying to live healthy, you can do that, and it's a free call, half an hour every Monday night. You can go to my website too to look for that number if you don't have it with you to write that down. So that's something you can do, especially if you're actually trying to change your life. You have to sometimes change your friends and your connections to do that in order to change your thinking, right? Because we tend to do what our friends do. So if all your friends are unhealthy, you might want to add a few new healthy friends to that and let some others go. Go to the next one. And then it's like, why should we be concerned about this? I mean, other than just wanting to look better and feel better, right? Live longer, have a healthier life. It's God's charge for us, right? Yeah. It says, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You are bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Come on. Yeah. So we need to be honoring God with our body, the way we present ourselves, the way we go out. This is our temple. This is the vessel He's given us here, and we need to do the best we can for it so that we can be better servants for Him, better servants for our family. The best gift we can give our family and friends is good health, because it's very hard when you're sick and you're in pain and your family has to look and watch that, right? So it's like, give your family, if not for yourself, at least for your family, that good health. And I really thank God for my parents who, really even changed a lot of their health practices after what I went through to just get better. And so to me, it's a gift that they're healthy. My father is 84 years old and very healthy and moving along and still on Facebook and playing a saxophone. So you don't have to be a decrepit old person on oxygen just because you're 80, You can have life and have it more abundantly. And that's what God wants for us. And I'm just thankful I've been able to share with you this morning. And I hope it's inspired you to keep on that path to natural health and to live a better life.
In 3 John, verse 2, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou may prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. And I know some of us are like, this that we talked about earlier. You think about, well, if I'm sick, I'm just going to come to church on a Sunday or Tuesday night or Sunday morning, whatever. We have prayer and we can pray. But then, we go back to the same old habits and the same old ways. We want to do what's easy. We don't want to do the things that are necessary for us to get better. Thank you, Dr. Ruby, for sharing with us this morning. I learned a lot. I got one bad food in my list that I need to throw out this morning. Because I use sweetener, and I use it sparingly. I try to cut out all sugars, and so my daughter was telling me about coconut sugar, which is a agave, I guess it is, and it's one of the better sugars for you, and she told me to throw out all the sweetener. I did not throw out all the sweetener, it's still in the house. And every now and again I would be tempted to, because it's so easy, you throw it in there and it just makes everything sweet. But it gives you an appearance and it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So, Andrew, we need to throw that one out. That's gone today. I want to learn, I want to be better. And what you were sharing is so right. My daughter and my sons have been so... Last Christmas, I remember them saying, Dad, we don't want to give you anything for Christmas because we want to help you to get healthy. So they were looking at ways to help me to get better, whether it be the vitamin shots or whatever it is that was needed. They wanted to give me a gift of life, a gift of health. And I believe that every one of us, I can't tell you enough about what you were saying, Dr. Ruby, about exercise, because I've gone that route, and Baron, going to the gym in the morning is no longer a pain. It's no longer a chore. It's a necessity. When I get there, and what has helped me to, like I shared last week, I bought this band that I put on, and it counts your heart rate. And based on your heart rate, the app on your phone tells you how much calories you're burning. Well, I used to work out for 45 minutes. I remember when I started this journey, it was like a 2 mile a day. I'm up to 8 miles. Not only am I doing 8 miles, I'm doing it at 6.5 minutes per mile, which is pretty fast. But not only that, what I used to do in 45 minutes, I'm now doing an hour and a half, because I'm watching this app and I'm watching as my heart rate goes up into the 150 and 155, close to 160. That I'm burning more calories. And what is happening is that it has motivated me now. I want to stay longer because I want to see that number go up. So what used to be a workout of 500 calories burned is now 12, 13. I've gotten to 1350. The idea is that it's motivating me to do better. And I know that there is so much that I can tell you. Dr. Ruby, thank you for sharing with us this morning, because it is what we are about. We are about the whole man. Taking care of the mind, the body, and the soul. We need to take care of ourselves because nobody else will do it for us. Amen? So, again, put your hands together and give God some praise for the blessing that He bestowed for us this morning through our best people. Dr. Ruby, this is, and I say Rudy, it's Ruby. Dr. Ruby, this is a place where you should feel welcome to come back at any time and share with us. I wanted to ask you a question, and then maybe for a few minutes we can open the floor, if possible, for some questions. Vitamin D3 was one of my questions, because I don't see it often. I don't see it in my multivitamin, and B12 either. B12 I have to buy separate, because most of the multivitamins don't carry B12. So maybe I need to look at my multivitamin and find one that carries B12. But what is vitamin D3?
Sure. Well, vitamin D3 is really a hormone. It's actually not a vitamin. They kind of mislabeled it. But vitamin D is what we get from the sun, right? So, unfortunately, most of us don't spend at least 40 minutes in the sun a day to get enough vitamin D, and you need to not have on that many clothes, more like a tank top and shorts, and for 45 minutes to get the adequate vitamin D from the sun. So since we're not doing that, we need to get it another way through our vitamins, and most foods don't have enough of it either. So vitamin D3, as I mentioned, is a hormone, and when you have that, it activates other vitamins and hormones in your body. So if you're low on that, you're not getting your full nutrition because it's not enough of it to activate the other nutrients that you need. And so when you're chronically low on that, basically you start getting more diseases like cancer and other things, even diabetes, because you're low in this one nutrient or hormone, because it makes everything else not work properly. So I do take a supplement in addition, because most multivitamins don't have enough vitamin D. So you need to get an additional supplement. They have it in liquid form that you can do drops, or you can do the capsule. And you need at least 5,000 international units a day. If you're deficient, you probably need more than that until you catch up. Well, like 10 or 20,000 units for like 3 weeks, and then you catch up. And then you can go back down to the 5,000 units. So if you're going to your doctor, ask them to test it. They should do this routinely, but they don't. But they know, any doctor you ask, almost all their clients are low in vitamin D. If you're not taking a supplement, it's almost guaranteed that you're low.